Hey, what's up guys, Sir Emanon here, bringing you to today another Lunalight combo tutorial video, and this is actually going to be updated for post Duel Overload that's coming up in a couple of weeks. I'm personally actually really excited because, as you guys have probably seen from the news, we are getting Raid Raptor Y-Strix, which dramatically changes the way that this deck plays and operates. The ceiling of this deck is very high once again, and it is almost in a self-contained manner in terms of being back to Chicken Tiger, which is what the deck hadn't really been in quite some time, at least before the Mermaid ban. And this deck is definitely slated to do very well. Obviously, all the other decks got boosts as well, but this deck definitely has a new direction going for it, and we no longer have to, play with what I felt were kind of suboptimal builds for the last couple of months. We are back in pretty much full force and ready to take over the metagame. But yeah, this is going to be a very preliminary outlook. I am going to go in depth as always, as you guys have come to know and expect, but do keep in mind that these are all very much in the infancy stages of their testing, as far as the combo lines, optimization processes, and all of those things. So definitely be sure to look at the upload date of this video if you are watching this a couple weeks down the line. And I am actually going to keep all these combos contained in Master Rule 4. There actually aren't a whole lot of radical differences between Master Rule 4 and Master Rule 2020, but there are going to be some very minor optimizations that could be made once the new Master Rule hits, as well as just being able to be more flexible in terms of how you actually structure your combos. But yeah, this is going to be ready for right after Duel Overload hits, and these combos will continue to be relevant even after Master Rule 2020. So I am going to be utilizing Chick and Tiger in all of these combos. In one combo, there's going to be just a random discard as well, but because there's no other extenders I'm going to be talking about, on the right hand side of the screen, I'm just going to be showcasing what the boards will be ending on, and in the combos themselves, I'm going to be talking a lot about how I feel about each individual one, and some takeaways, advantages, disadvantages, and things of that nature. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into it. Alrighty guys, so for this first combo, I'm going to be showcasing what I consider to be probably the most hyped up combo, as far as what people immediately think of when they think of Lunalights under Duel Overload and Y-Strix and everything, and that is going to be the Infinite Negate combo. So for those of you guys who aren't aware, with just these two cards, you can actually create a board state that allows you to negate every single card your opponent controls at all points in the game. Now, there are some caveats to this, which I'll talk about later on, but for the purposes of being called Infinite Negates, it quite literally is Infinite Negates. So we will actually be discussing that as well. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and get right into the combo. Starting off, as always, we are going to be normal summoning our Kaleido Chick. Nothing too special here. We're going to be dumping our Yellow Marten to the graveyard as always. We're going to scale our Tiger in the Pendulum Zone and then bring back the Yellow Marten from our graveyard. Then we are going to overlay into a copy of Raid Raptor 4-Strix. Nothing too suspect here yet, but with 4-Strix's effect, we're going to detach Yellow Marten to search a copy of Raid Raptor's Singing Lanius. Now, this is an extender that allows you to just special summon it freely as a built-in summon, just by controlling an Exceeds monster, and it is a hard once per turn for its summoning condition, but that's really all you need because it is again searchable by the 4-Strix here. And just as again a tiny little side note, you do generally want to be detaching Marten, assuming you don't really have a super strong opening, like say another Perfume or another Tiger for example, just because you want to engrave in case this gets stopped, so you at least have the Marten bounce to continue to try and extend just a little bit. But that's just a very minor point aside. We are going to proceed by special summoning the Singing Lanius using its own procedure, and then we will go ahead and link these two off into the brand new Raid Raptor Y-Strix, the new cornerstone of the deck. So this is a Dark Link 2 monster that is a Winged Beast with 1400 attack, requires 2 Dark Winged Beast monsters, and reads as follows. If this card is link summoned, you can special summon one level 4 Dark Winged Beast monster from your deck in defense position, but it cannot be used as link material, also its effects are negated. If your Raid Raptor Exceeds monster's effect is activated, you set one rank of magic spell directly from your deck, and if it is a quick play spell, it can be activated during this turn, and each effect of Y-Strix is a hard once per turn. So on the Link Summon, excuse me, you're going to go ahead and summon your Blackwing Zephyrus Elite directly from your deck. And it is important to note the restriction that you cannot just link this away for further Link Summoning plays, but it's totally fine because we intend on just using it as Xyz material anyway. But yeah, the reason why this is a very strong card is simply because of the fact that instead of getting Zephyrus to your hand like we would previously with Force Strix and relying on a discard outlet, whether it be Barricade Board Blocker or copies of Foolish Burial Goods or Perfume to be able to just get this out of your hand, Y-Strix actually just allows you to tutor it directly from your deck, which is a really nice way to ensure that you have access to it at all times. And that is a really strong benefit. So next up, we're going to go ahead and use our Yellow Button's effect in the graveyard to target this tiger, return it to the hand, and special summon itself in defense position. Then we are going to overlay these two monsters into a copy of Raid Raptor Force Strix again, because this is not a hard once per turn. It is only a soft once per turn. It is once per turn per copy. So we are able to go ahead and attach this copy of Zephyrus Elite. You want to put in graveyard again, just in case, so you have it as a resource later on. But with this Force Strix, we're actually going to search a copy of Blackwing Bora the Spear. Now, you can also search a copy of Blackwing Chris the Crack of Dawn. They're not really too different, but both of them have the clause that state if you control a Blackwing monster other than itself, basically, you can special summon it from your hand. Now, the key difference to note between Bora and Chris is that Chris is a hard once per turn on that summoning condition, whereas Bora is not. So there is a potential world in which you would want to run multiples of these in case you draw one of them, so that you can always trigger your second copy of Force Strix. And why that is important is that the other effect of Raid Raptor Y-Strix will now trigger to actually set your copy of Rank Up Magic Soul Shave Force from your deck. So going back to that point just a little bit, if you open with a copy of Bora the Spear, then you won't actually have a search target for Force Strix, and therefore you won't actually be able to get the Soul Shave Force out of your deck. However, by playing two copies of Bora, that ensures that you also are able to not only get the Y-Strix to trigger at all times, but you also have the flexibility of just being able to special summon both of them because, again, they are not hard once per turn, unlike something like Chris. You could do one Chris and one Bora, that's also fine. Their effects are very minor. Bora does piercing, and Chris can't be destroyed by spell or trap effects once per turn. They don't really come up in either case, so just pick the one that you prefer. Personally, Bora is about 10 cents, whereas Chris, I think, is around $5, so that's also something to consider, but I digress, getting off track a bit. Rank Up Magic Soul Shave Force is our Rank Up Magic of choice, as it allows us to pay half of our life points and then target a Raid Raptor Xyz monster in our graveyard, special summon it, and then a special summon from our extra deck an Xyz monster that is 2 ranks higher than that monster by using it as a Xyz material. So this is very good because we are obviously putting our Force Strixes into the graveyard for Link Summoning plays, allowing us to just reborn them and then go into rank 6s. And there is one specific rank 6 of choice that we're going to be using for pretty much every one of these combos. And if you're familiar at all with this combo, you already know what it is. But this is going to be the card of choice. And just a small little ruling thing with Y-Strix. If you happen to draw the Soul Shave Force, Y-Strix still does actually attempt to trigger because it is a mandatory effect. So just do keep that in mind in case your opponent has like an Ogre or something. They could technically Ogre the second effect. Not sure why would they wait that long, but just something to consider. But we are going to now go ahead and actually activate this Soul Shave Force right away because we want to get our monster on board, which is going to be Cyber Dragon Infinity. So this being summoned at this point allows us to just further play around hand traps. And this is definitely past the point of Nibiru, but there is actually a way to be able to mitigate that as well, which I'll get into in some of the combos later on. But we have here Cyber Dragon Infinity just now as protection in case our opponent has decided to be a little bit greedier with their interruptions and want to hold them for a later point. This kind of just stops them in their tracks, which is a very good thing here. So next up, we're going to link these two monsters away into another new OCG card, which is getting imported in the Duel Overload set, and that is going to be Simorgh, Bird of Kings. So this is a Wind Link 3 Winged Beast with 2400 attack, pointing all down, which is very good, requiring 2+ monsters including a Winged Beast monster. They cannot be used as link material, your opponent cannot target this card or Winged Beast monsters it points to with card effects, and if this card will be destroyed by battle, you can destroy a Simorgh card that you control instead. And most importantly, for our deck, during the end phase, you can special summon one Winged Beast monster from your hand or deck whose level is equal to or lower than the number of unused spell and trap zones on the field. And that is going to be very relevant later on in the combo string. But for now, we're going to go ahead and rescale Tiger and bring back a copy of Collider Chick. You can go ahead and opt to send something like Emerald Bird to the graveyard if you want to. And because I got a lot of comments on my big Lunalight Time Thief video, I'm just going to mention it here for those guys who are newer to the deck or are unfamiliar with the way that Lunalight cards operate. Chick can send the Emerald Bird or whatever you want to the graveyard, even though it is being negated by Tiger, because it sends for a cost. So this clause right here, sending a Lunalight monster from your deck to the extra deck to the graveyard, comes before the semicolon, which means that all that text is a cost required to activate that effect. So even if that is negated by Tiger, even if your opponent negates it with something like Effect Failure or Infinite Impermanence, you still have to pay the cost. So that is something that is definitely important to note. The actual effect that is being negated is the fact that Chick can change her name, or her name can be treated as whatever monster you send if you use Fusion Material that turn, but that is largely going to be irrelevant for most of the combos. So just going to put that out there in case you guys are still unfamiliar with the way that Lunalight cards operate, just as a, kind of beginner tip. So yeah, carrying on here, we're going to go ahead and use our Zephyrus in graveyard to go ahead and bounce the Tiger to our hand, special summoning itself, and we take 400. We are going to go ahead and rescale our Tiger and bring back another Lunalight of choice. Doesn't really matter too much in this case. And because we control this Zephyrus, we can now special summon this Bora the Spirit out of our hand, which is very nice. So we have a lot of plays for presumably Exceeds or Link Summoning plays. So what we're going to do here is we're going to link 2 of these monsters off into a copy of Union Carrier, which requires 2 monsters of the same type or attribute, another new card from Duel Overload and one of the more busted ones. This card also cannot be used as link material, but only during the turn it's link summon, which is important. You can also target a face-up monster that you control and equip 1 monster with the same original type or original attribute as a targeted monster from your hand or deck to it as an equip spell that makes it gain 1000 attack. But if you're equipped from your deck, then you cannot special summon monsters with the same name as that monster card for the rest of this turn. And you can only use this effect of Union Carrier once per turn. So this is very useful in our deck, obviously, because it specifies 2 monsters with the same type or attribute, and pretty much every single one of our main deck cards is going to be dark, so it's essentially just generic. And it allows us to do really nutty things with the Simorg link here. So we're going to link off the remaining 2 monsters into a copy of IP Masquerena, just to be able to actually do a neat little trick during our opponent's turn with it. So Union Carrier will now activate its effect targeting the Simorg Bird of Kings. Since it's a wind, we can go ahead and equip a wind to it, which will be Mist Valley Thunderbird. Now this card reads that when this card face up on the field returns to the hand, you special summon it, but it cannot attack during that turn. And that is not a hard once per turn effect, so that's going to be pretty important. Then during our end phase, the Simorg link actually triggers to special summon a winged beast monster from our deck with a level equal to or lower than the number of unused spell or trap zones on the field. Since currently there are 8 unused spell and trap zones, because remember it counts our opponents, so they have 5 unused and we have 3 unused, we can go ahead and summon a copy of Mist Valley Apex Avion directly from our deck. So this card allows us to, once per chain, if a card or effect is activated, you target a Mist Valley card you control, return that target to the hand, and if you do, negate the activation, and if you do that, destroy it. So this is where this loop comes in, because what you're going to do is you're going to target your copy of Mist Valley Thunderbird, return it to the hand, and then negate a card that your opponent controls. Then the Mist Valley Thunderbird, because it was returned face up on the field to the hand, re-special summons itself. Then you can just continually do this over and over again to negate all of your opponent's cards, quite literally negating an infinite negation loop. Another thing to note here is that even if you open with, say, like a Fire Formation Tenki, or if you had a duplicate copy of Lunalight Tiger, you are still able to get the Apex Avion out because it is a level 7. But notably, if you have a Tenki up and 2 copies of Tiger, it won't work because you need the Thunderbird on the field as well, because this triggers the end phase and Carrier has to activate during the main phase. So just be mindful of the number of unused spell and trap zones that are actually on the field. You have to make sure that it is 7 or more that are unused. So yeah, during our opponent's turn, we're just going to negate all our opponent's cards. And then at the earliest opportunity during our opponent's main phase, we can use IP Masquerena to link off with the Union Carrier, which cannot be linked away during the turn it's summoned, but it's no longer the same turn, so you can do it during your opponent's turn. And then link off into a copy of Mekk-Knight Crusadia Avermax. Now, why are we doing this? The reason we're doing this is so that when we summon back our Mist Valley Thunderbird, it is not susceptible to battle because it only has 1100 attack and 700 defense. So what you want to be doing is making sure that you have some sort of battle protection for it to ensure that it is safe and sound. So yes, Magnetic Crusader Avermax is a card that fits that bill very well, and it's actually also a card that's just very hard for your opponent to deal with because it protects pretty much your entire board from battle, and it itself is very well protected as well. And it was made with IP Masquerade, meaning not only can it not be targeted as per usual, but it also cannot be destroyed by card effects either, which is really, really good. So that is the crux of the combo, and the combo I think is pretty obviously oppressive in a vacuum, but there are a lot of disadvantages to it, which I will talk about in a clip right here. Alrighty guys, so just to illustrate an example of the problems that I have with this particular combo, I'm going to demonstrate an example in which even if you resolve the full combo, your board is still actually somewhat vulnerable despite how impenetrable it might initially seem. So let's go ahead and move on to your opponent's turn, right? They have to deal with the infinite loop of Avian bouncing Thunderbird, Thunderbird summoning itself, etc., right? So let's go ahead and say that our opponent actually has prepared for this combo because it's been receiving a lot of attention, and they do something very simple like this. This is a huge problem. It gets rid of the infinity, which is one of the big sort of contingencies against the sort of huge linchpin that is actually Thunderbird, which I'll get into in just a bit. So say you go ahead and just use Masquerade in response, or your opponent tries to leave the battle phase, or leave the main phase anyway. So you go ahead and go into Avermax, just try and protect your board, which is generally the right play. Going into Appaloosa would just get run over by the Mega Fleet here anyway, right? So Avermax is probably the safest play. So let's say that next your opponent is still in main phase and activates a very powerful, impactful card that you want to negate, something like Shuttle Fusion. So you have infinite gates, you might as well just negate this. So you go ahead and chain the Apex Avian to target your Thunderbird to try and bounce it to the hand and negate this Shuttle Fusion. So what if your opponent then chains something like Cosmic Cyclone? Now this is a huge problem because when they target your Thunderbird, then this is going to cause it to where Apex Avian actually won't actually negate the Shuttle Fusion because the card that it's attempting to bounce is no longer going to go to the hand. And B, it gets rid of your infinite loop. Like Apex Avian's once per chain, it can't negate this Cosmic Cyclone again. So now you're in a bit of a predicament to where the opponent's Shuttle Fusion is going to resolve, or whatever card it is. And now all of a sudden they only have to play through one negate. Like this can activate again, sure, in a different chain, but your opponent only has to really deal with like an Avian and an Avermax. That's not really too hard to deal with. And truth be told, this isn't even accounting for cards like Dark Ruler no more, or even the random things like Kaijus, or just other cards your opponent might have in preparation for this, to where you are going to really struggle if you're relying on this to be your sole win condition. And this goes into another weakness that I have with this particular combo, and that's if you get interrupted, particularly if you get Nibiru'd at a very crucial point in your combo, then it's going to really be hard to pivot because you're so locked into performing this one combo. Your deck doesn't really have many other adaptations, and while it's true that it doesn't require a lot of extra deck space to pull this off, the fact of the matter is it's a lot harder to fit in other win conditions in tandem with this. So that's why I'm actually not a big fan of this combo, and I'll showcase some other combos that I think are going to be better one by one. This next combo is going to be a variation of the last one, and that is going to be still utilizing the Simorgh link, but using it in such a way that we are trying to end on a barrier statue of the Stormwind instead of an infinite negate combo. And I'll actually showcase why I personally think that this is a little bit better towards the end of it. But we're going to go ahead and get started here. So it's going to start much the same way. And for all these combos, it's really going to look very similar. So it's going to be check setting Martin, Tiger bringing back Martin, going into Force Strix number 1, searching a copy of Singing Lanius to immediately special summon, going into Y Strix, which will go ahead and bring out the Blackwing Zephyrus Elite from deck, and then using Martin's Graveyard effect to bounce Tiger and special summon itself to go into a second copy of Force Strix to search Bora the Spear and set a rank up spell from your deck off of Y Strix. So if you're an observant player and a critical thinker, you're probably wondering why exactly this is something that we want to go for, because it seems like such an obvious choke point, right? Like Y Strix is obviously a thing that your opponent's always going to stop if they have responses to it. And To that, I say it depends on how the format develops. So there are certain cards that this deck is more resilient to than others, and depending on how you build it, you can play around cards like Nibiru, Ash, and Imperm actually just completely fine. Even if your opponent stops you at, like, say, the first 4 Strix, which is actually another choke point, you can still recover in certain ways if you build your deck accordingly. So I'll leave that to you as the player to decide on how to best operate that, as I am still in the process and quest of figuring that out for myself, which I will update you guys on in the coming weeks as I playtest more. But getting back on track here, we're going to go ahead and use this Soul Shade Force right away to go ahead and summon the Cyber Dragon Infinity from our extra deck. Now, notably, we are putting it in defense position here, and the reason we are doing that is that we're not ending on an Infinite Negate combo like last time, right? So last time, if your opponent has Lightning Storm, then it doesn't really matter, we can just negate it, right? But here, we only have 1 negate, and why use a negate on something that's, preventable? You can just play around Lightning Storm by putting all your stuff in defense. And you're going to want to put a lot of your things in defense anyway, for reasons I'm about to explain. But this is just a free way to save yourself from having to use a Cyber Dragon Infinity that you otherwise would have had to. So yeah, just things to keep in mind. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and link away the Y Strix and the 4 Strix into the Simorgh link once again. And then go ahead and use our Tiger to bring back Chick. You can dump whatever you want with Chick. And then use Zephyrus Engrave to revive itself, bounce the Tiger, summon the Bora because you control a Zephyrus. And then you can go ahead and overlay into the first rank 4, which will be number 39 Utopia, the OG. He is here, and he is going to protect our board. So obviously, Barrier Statue of the Storm Winds is only 1,000 attack and defense, so you want to make sure that your opponent just can't summon something and then run it over by battle. So this being a, not once, but a twice time protector for battle immunity, so to speak, is a very, very good line of defense to have and is pretty necessary to have in some way, shape, or form. Now, something to also take note of is that the last combo we utilized Magnetic Crusadia Avamax, and the reason why Avamax is also kind of maybe a point of contention in some instances is that your opponent could theoretically run something like Super Poly into Mud Dragon to clear away the Affinity and the Avamax. In this combo, we don't have to really worry about that because of the fact that we are summoning obviously a Barrier Statue, which is preventing special summons of anything that isn't a wind anyway. So it doesn't really particularly matter too much, but this just allows you to get an extra rank 4 on the board. So you get another layer of interaction, which this field kind of lacks because it's kind of just sitting on a floodgate. So we're going to go ahead and scale our Tiger for our final time, bring back a Lunalight of choice, and then go into any rank 4 that we want to. We can go into Dweller if we're blind, we can go into Evil Swarm Nightmare, we can go into Tornado Dragon. If you know the matchup, you can just tailor it to whatever you feel is best, but just depending on the format, there will be a definitive best choice by the time that we understand the format better. So just reserve that in mind for if you're watching this at a later time. So in the end phase, Simorgh is going to trigger and bring out a copy of Barrier Statue of the Storm Winds. Now, this is, again, very good because our opponent won't be able to Lightning Storm us. They can if they want to, but they won't get really any value out of it. And it is true that Cyber Dragon Infinity is normally weak in defense position, but we have Utopia to take care of any battle phase shenanigans. And our opponent's actually going to have a hard time breaking this board because there's not really that many wind monsters in the metagame right now. The thing that comes to mind is like Rishadal Wendy or things like Spiral Tough, but those are very, very niche, and they still have to actually get over the Utopia backed up by a Cyber Dragon Infinity and whatever rank 4 that you choose. And another thing to note is that you can also just shotgun Dweller if you are making Dweller in their standby phase, because you have this Infinity to protect it from things like Impermanence. And the fact is that if your opponent had Impermanence, they probably would have used it, so they would have had to literally draw it for turn in order for that to actually be relevant. So I think having Dweller in the face of a negation on your field is totally fine. And yeah, I do think that this is better than the Infinite Negate combo just because it loses to less things. One of the big problems with having Infinity on any given end board, which will be, spoiler alert, pretty much all of them, is going to be the fact that your opponent can just play Mega Fleet if they're really prepared for this matchup, and you can get completely blown out by the fact that you just don't really have much protection for your board anymore. But with Barrier Statue, it says no to that. It says no to stuff like Super Poly, and even to Kaijus unless you're playing specifically Godarla. So very, very good stuff to hear. The problem with it is, again, similar to the Apex Avian combo. If your opponent hand traps you at a very timely moment, or more specifically like Nibiru's you at a good time, you have very, very little ways to actually achieve this particular win condition. So if it is kind of your crutch and the only way that you're planning on building your board, then you're going to have a rough time. And if you incorporate more and more win conditions into your deck, especially into your main deck, then you're just going to introduce a lot more Garnets, which I'm not too big of a fan of. So in further combos, we're just going to go ahead and discuss and explore other options as far as certain win conditions. But for the third combo, we're actually going to go and do something a little bit crazier. So see you there. Alrighty guys, so this combo is going to be probably the craziest one in the entire video as far as just extra deck investment and throwing everything out the window and hoping that something sticks. It's a very convoluted and crazy combo, but it's really fun and satisfying to watch, and it produces one of the crazier boards in this entire video. But yeah, this is actually going to incorporate guard dragons, which is something I haven't really played around with ever since Aggro Pain got banned. But I want to give a shout out to the DB Grinder. You can go ahead and check out his YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the description as well. But he actually was the one who showed me a actually current version of this combo. You can do this even without Y-Strix, but I went ahead and took some liberty and tried to see how far exactly you can go with the new cards. So let's go ahead and hop right into this and see this madness. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with Collider. This is actually going to be a combo that requires one random discard, but it doesn't matter what it is. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and summon Gallant and do the exact same stuff that we are used to seeing by now. So we're going to go ahead and send Martin. Tiger will bring back Martin. Go ahead and overlay for the first 4 Strix, detaching the yellow Martin. Go ahead and search the Singing Lanius. Singing Lanius will go ahead and summon itself, and then we'll go ahead and summon the Y Strix, which will bring out Zephyrus. Then we'll go ahead and bounce our Tiger to our hand by special summoning Martin to our field, and then go and summon a second 4 Strix, which will go ahead and detach Zephyrus to bring out Bora to our hand. And then Y-Strix triggers to, of course, set the Soul Shave Force, but we actually won't activate it. And the reason why we're not activating it right now is that we're going to run out of space on the board. We are not going to have enough cards to actually do our entire combo if we have the Cyber Dragon Freddy on our board at this stage. So if we do get Nibiru'd, or if we do get hand trapped at some point along the way, it's going to be a little bit unfortunate, but we'll be making Appaloosa somewhat soon as well. So that's like somewhat mitigated. Like, it doesn't really make a big difference if we get Nibiru'd here versus the 1 or 2 extra steps that I'm going to be taking prior to Nibiru being effective for us. But what we're going to do instead is rescale Tiger to bring back a copy of Collider or whatever Lunalight name. And we're going to go ahead and send another Lunalight to grave if we want to. It doesn't, again, really matter too much. And here's where the fun part starts. So we're going to go ahead and bounce the Tiger to our hand with our Zephyrus, obviously. And you're probably going to be like, okay, he's going to special summon Bora and then go into some like random plays, like probably Appaloosa then. But again, if we summon our Bora, we're actually going to run out of space. So you can choose between Bora and summoning out like this Collider here, but like it doesn't make sense to scale Tiger just to immediately bounce it back with Zephyrus, because you're going to have to discard 2 cards in this combo. So I did say 1 random discard, but this Bora is actually going to be the other card that we end up discarding, simply because, well, I mean, better to discard this that we searched instead of summoning it instead of the Lunalight name off the Tiger and then having to discard a second card. So might as well just save ourselves the trouble and the resources in our hand in exchange for more power on the field later on. And you'll see why it'll matter as far as the space, because it might seem like we have this vacant space all the way to the left here, but it's actually going to be very, very necessary in how we specifically do this combo. So we'll take our 400 from our Zephyrus, and then we're going to go ahead and link away the 4 Strix, the 4 Strix and the Zephyrus into a copy of Dragunity Knight Romulus. And this requires not just dragons, but also dragons and or winged beasts, because it is a Dragunity card. So thanks to the power of Dragunities being focused on both those types, we can actually abuse that and search our Dragon Ravine to our hand. So now you can see where this is going. This is how we get access to our dragon cards. And we can go ahead and just protect ourselves now with Appaloosa. So required a couple extra steps, but if our opponent Nibiru'd us at whatever point there, then it would have been what it was anyway. Like, our opponent would have Nibiru'd us, on the set of probably this rank up magic spell anyway, just to try and play around it. So we would have gotten Nibiru'd at that point, no matter what we did, if they had Nibiru. So they probably wouldn't have greeted for that long if they understand what's coming with the Soul Shave Force. But I digress. So assuming this all goes through anyway, we're going to go ahead and have our 2 Negate Appaloosa here, and then we're going to go ahead and activate the Dragon Ravine. We're going to discard the Bora because we're actually just not going to need it, and we don't have any opportunities to summon Blackwing monsters anymore, so it's just not going to do anything in our hand anyways. So what we're going to do is we're going to send a copy of Destrudo, the Lost Dragon's Prison, to our graveyard, and then we'll use its graveyard effect, paying half our life points, targeting the Kaleido Chick, and then we're going to summon itself, and it turns into level 3. So here comes Guard Dragon stuff. We're going to link this away into a copy of Guard Dragon LP. LP will go ahead and activate, summoning a copy of Brotar. Brotar will target the LP or itself and discard the other random card in our hand to go ahead and search Chaos Dragon Levianeer. We're doing this instead of Red Eye's Darkness Metal because, for one, it allows us to rip a card out of our opponent's hand, but for another, we actually won't be able to use Red MD to the way that we want to, because we have to specifically actually keep the Link monsters on the board, the LP and the Pisty, which I'll talk about as well as far as why we couldn't summon the Infinity earlier. But what we're going to do now is link away this Brotar into a copy of Guard Dragon Pisty, and then we'll summon a copy of Chaos Dragon Levianeer by banishing the Brotar and 2 other Darks. You can banish extra deck cards. Just make sure you keep 1 Force Strix in here so that you still have a target to use your Soul Shade Force on. Don't actually banish all your copies of it, but do feel free to banish just extras of things you don't need. Levianeer will rip a card out of your opponent's hand, so you're going to be starting on 5. And then Pissy will actually bring back the Brotar that you just banished. And then this is why you needed the extra space, right? Because you're probably thinking, well, why not just summon Levianeer, then link those away, and then use Pisty afterward? The reason is that we specifically have to link away this Levianeer and this Brotar into a copy of Hieratic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres. And the reason we have to do that instead of linking away the Guard Dragon Spirit is that what we're going to do now is tribute all 3 of these for a copy of World Chalice Guard Dragon Almarduke. This is a relatively common super poly target that requires 3 Link monsters, but it also can be special summoned by tributing the above cards that you control, which is why you need the Link monsters to stay on your board, and that is why we needed to have the space available in order to actually link away the dragons into Hieratic Seals, because both the Guard Dragons will lock us into dragons, so we need to be able to clear the space to actually make a Dragon Link monster, and the one that we need to summon is Hieratic Seal because of the fact that the Almarduke actually tributes these cards. So what that means is that Hieratic Seal's other effect, when it is tributed, actually does trigger, so it'll special summon a dragon from our hand or deck, making its attack and defense 0. So we're going to summon World Legacy Guard Dragon Mardark. This is the only level 9 dragon that is summonable by the means of the Hieratic Seal, so we are going to be using it. And if you haven't noticed, the other World Chalice Guard Dragon is also going to be level 9. So we are overlaying these 2 into a copy of True King of All Calamities. Pretty fun. So obviously this Appaloosa is a little bit superfluous now, but it did help us if our opponent was very greedy with their Nibiru and stuff. So that is what that's there for. Also provides good arrows, so might as well, right? But wait, there's more. We're going to go ahead and rescale a Tiger and bring back the Emerald Bird. And you're probably like, all right, it's just going to be a rank 4 and Infinity, which it could be, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we could do something really funny here and go ahead and make a copy of Gallant Granite, which is a rock searcher, and we're going to search a copy of Zephyrus. Zephyrus will go ahead and be scaled and use its effect to send Zephyrus from the deck to the face of extra deck. And then, since we have 1 extra zone available from Appaloosa, we can go ahead and pendulum summon this copy of Zephyrus out, which will go ahead and add a copy of Zephyr Divine Strike to our hand. And then we can link away those 2 into a copy of IP Masquerena if we wanted to. And then finally, we are going to activate this Soul Shade Force going down to 1900 life points and go ahead and summon a copy of Cyber Dragon Infinity at this point. And we're going to set our Divine Strike and pass. So we effectively achieved basically just turning off all of our opponent's monsters. Even if they have hand or graveyard effects, if we miscall the attribute, we can still negate those. We have Cyber Dragon Infinity, and our Appaloosa is also being protected because our opponent's monsters just can't attack us, which is cool. We have Infinity to negate stuff, and we have Divine Strike to negate stuff. Now, like I was mentioning, you could easily just play other stuff in the extra deck by dropping Gallant, Granite, and IP. You can just play more rank 4s, because the way that this is operating right now, this requires 13 spots in the extra deck. So yeah, that's not really a lot of room for utility, because if you want to play Bora Sword and Phoenix, then that's just the 2 extra deck monsters right there. And this is like a fun combo, but it's definitely not one of the more practical ones, simply because of how much investment it requires to make a board like this. But it's cool to see that, you know, you can still go and do funny things like a guard dragons if you really want to. And that is actually going to be it for this combo, but we're going to showcase another very high ceiling combo that is a lot more efficient and a lot more practical that you might remember from just this past format. So see you in just a bit. Okay guys, so this next combo is actually going to be the yugioh combo from last format. And it's a lot more refined and actually a lot safer to do. And additionally, it's really good because of the fact that it eliminates one of the bigger weaknesses, which was Curious variance. So you could lose out to a very bad Curious Mill or a very unlucky Curious Mill and just have your combo stopped in your tracks. Whereas now you don't actually have to rely on that at all. You just get everything you need contained in the combo, which is really cool. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and get started. It still is just Chick Tiger, so it doesn't require an extender anymore either, which is really nice. So yeah, we're gonna go ahead and summon our Kaleido Chick, obviously, send Martin. I'm gonna go ahead and scale Tiger, bring back the Martin, go Force Strix, search the copy of Singing Lanius. Singing Lanius will go ahead and be summoned by its own effect. Then we're gonna go ahead and bring out Y Strix, and then bring out Zephyrus, bring out Martin, all the standard stuff. And we'll go ahead and into a second Force Strix, search our copy of Bora, but instead of the Soul Shade Force, the Y Strix is actually going to summon a copy of the Rank Up Magic Launch, the Phantom Knights Rank Up Magic Launch that has been very much responsible for this craziness to still continue. And it is, you know, it's pretty wild. This card is, you know, still legal. It's crazy. But anyways, we're gonna go ahead and rescale our Tiger, bring back a Kaleido Chick, and then we're just gonna go ahead into Appaloosa after we send off Chick. So Appaloosa here at this point just protects us from Nibiru because we don't have Cyber Dragon Infinity, so we're just going to go ahead and summon Appaloosa. If the Nibiru rests earlier, then kind of sucks, but there is like a small way around it. If you just are able to get into a Link 2, then you're able to freely do this, and if you're Master Duel 5, you don't need to link your arrows at all. So that is pretty good. We're going to go ahead and summon our Zephyrus by bouncing the Tiger back to our hand, and then we're going to go ahead and summon the Bora because we have a Blackwing. Overlay into the Utopia Double. If you guys aren't familiar with this combo, I would recommend watching the other yugioh combo video that I did where I explained like these the Utopia combo in depth. But we're gonna add Double or Nothing, then rank up into Utopia Kaiser, who allows us to, if you just need a quick refresher, summon a pretty much any rank 9 or lower number exceeds monster from our extra deck, and it locks us into special summoning, or not being able to special summon for the rest of the turn. So during our opponent's main phase, after your opponent conducts the first action, we can go ahead and flip the Rank Up Magic Launch and go ahead and overlay for the man himself, the Duo Don King yugioh. So this just shuts off our opponent's entire play, and what's cool about this is that we actually get to keep our Tiger in our hand. So even if our opponent's playing a back row deck, we can freely blow up the field and still have Tiger in our hand for guaranteed follow-up, which is really nice here. And it's really good because of the fact that it doesn't lose to Dark Ruler no more, unlike some of the other combos in here. So that's also something to keep in mind, is that this is a very resilient combo, and it only loses to a handful of things, like if you for some reason leave yourself vulnerable to being super polyed, which this board doesn't inherently really lose to, but you know, just if you happen to overextend, just don't overextend into super poly. If your opponent plays Kaijus or Sphere Mode, yeah, that can suck for sure, but it is what it is if they have it. And generally speaking, I think this is actually like a lot better than it was. The only real Garnet is Double or Nothing if you only play one of it. So yeah, just really nice that you don't have to worry about Curious Milling just messing up your entire combo. So that's pretty good. I still think bottlenecking yourself into this play is like not a great thing, especially with how much extra deck investment it requires, but it's still really good to have as an option if you wanted to play it. So for the final two combos, we're going to go ahead and talk about some of my more preferred methods as far as creating maybe not as like insanely, you know, oppressive boards as, you know, like something like Infinite Negates or yugioh, just stopping your opponent from, you know, doing stuff, or Shrieking of All Calamities, or summoning a barrier statue. You know, all of these are very oppressive, Floodgate like, you know, sort of boards that just prevent your opponent from doing things like altogether. But the boards that I am about to show for the final two combos, I think, are a lot steadier. They have better pivots, and they are just my go-to preferred way of playing the deck in general. So see you guys there. Okay guys, so this is going to be the first of two sort of what I call steady combos, and what that basically means is that these combos are very fluid. They're very flexible in terms of the format, in terms of the metagame, the matchup that you're against. You can tailor your build to whatever you feel is best, and I think that these builds excel at recovering from disruption, whether it be going first or going second, versus different hand traps or different like board breaker cards. This deck or these sorts of combos are a lot more resilient in that aspect, and I really like them. Even though they might not be as flashy or as maybe oppressive as the other boards, I still think that they do enough to stopping your opponent, and then you can just go ahead and use your insane follow-up and win the game from there. So this first one is going to be the only combo that I feel actually does get a boost from Master Rule 2020, and that is because the zone placement can be a little bit awkward for these cards, but this is going to result in a Dragon Buster Destruction Sword extra deck lock, as well as some negations in the form of Infinity, Disruption in the form of Evil Swarm Nightmare, and you get IP to be able to link away the carrier into either Avamax, or in this combo you can go into Appaloosa as well. So go ahead and start off as we have every other combo: Chick sending Martin, Tiger bringing back Martin. Go ahead into Force Strix, do this same old. I'm just going to fast forward this. Going to go ahead and summon Singulanius, summon Y-Strix, summon Zephyrus, bounce Tiger with Martin, and then summon the Martin, and then we're going to go ahead and go into the second Force Strix. Second Force Strix searches us Bora the Spirit, and we're setting our Soul Shade Force as in most of the combos. We're going to go ahead and activate our Soul Shade Force since we're not really zone locked yet. I'm going to go ahead and make Cyber Dragon Infinity. Now, I'll talk about this a little bit later. I tried making this later in the combo to get an extra interruption on board, but it didn't matter either way because you just simply don't have the convenient zones available. All right, so you're going to rescale Tiger, bring back Collider Chick, and then Collider Chick can send whatever at this point, as always, honestly. And then you can link those two, the Force Strix and the Collider Chick, into IP Masquerena, because those are the only two non-links at this point that you want to link away. And then we can go ahead and use our Zephyrus to bounce the Tiger to our hand, taking 400, and then summoning the Bora because we control a Blackwing. Now what we can do is link away the Y-Strix in either of our Blackwings for a copy of Union Carrier, and then we can rescale our Tiger for the last time, bring back a Lunalight, and it has to be specifically a Dark Seas monster because we're going to be equipping the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, which is a Dark monster. So unless you have a Dragon or a Dark monster, you can't equip it. So in this case, I think Evil Swarm Nightmare is the best one, so that is what we're going to go for. So you might notice that the zone placement is kind of weird. Like Masquerena is just kind of in the middle zone, which you normally don't see. But because Y-Strix is in the extra monster zone and we have to make it first, we can't make IP with it. And if we make Union Carrier, then we can't link it away, so we're only going to have another chance at a downward pointing arrow. So only like 3 of them maximum. But if we, for example, didn't have the Cyber Dragon Infinity at the start there, we could technically make another rank 4 in the zone that Y-Strix pointed to, like where the Infinity currently is. And the thing that I had in mind obviously was the Zephyr engine that I had in the other combo. But the problem is that now you don't have a space to pendulum summon the Zephranu and then conveniently link them away into something like Union Carrier, because then you'll just have a Gallant Granite and a Zephranu just sitting on the board, and you need to link away this Zephranu to get it in the extra decks. So because of all of those complications, because of the arrows on Union Carrier and its restriction, as well as IP having her summoning condition there, it just isn't conducive to being able to do the full thing yet. But if you want a little bit of a sort of a brain teaser, I suppose, you can actually come up with a way to end on pretty much all of this board, including a Gallant Granite as well on top of it. So definitely ways to do that. And I think that is a pretty good experiment if you want to go ahead and try that for yourself. But yeah, this is still a pretty good end board because you're walking your opponent out of their extra deck. The Nightmare is the one that is like what would be vulnerable, but it has its own built-in protection by just Book of Mooning everything that your opponent has to stop it. And you have IP to go into whatever you need. You can go to Unicorn, Appaloosa, you can go into Avamax, whatever it might be. And you have Infinity as backup. So the only thing that this hard loses to is Dark Ruler, but a lot of decks honestly, or a lot of these combos honestly lose to Dark Ruler pretty badly. I think the only one that doesn't really lose to Dark Ruler is the one that ends on Tricking of All Calamities, because you're just going to shotgun it anyway, as well as the Kali Yuga build. But yeah, most of these are going to die to Dark Ruler. But you still will have the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword, so your opponent will have to still have a way to get over Nightmare without going into their extra decks. So it's still not entirely bad, but I'm going to show you a final combo which I think actually solves this problem a little bit better and actually has a bit of a harder lock to out. Alrighty guys, so if you made it this far into the video, be sure to give me another very strong hashtag. Let's do hashtag Ystrix this time around, just to, make sure that I know you're hanging in there still. And also, I am still obviously very much in the process of still working on a build in general. I have no idea exactly which cards I want to incorporate because, as you can see, there's so many different options. But yeah, I will definitely be posting a build of a Duel Overload legal sort of deck, but probably not until Master Rule 2020 because the Duel Overload drops so close to it anyway. I am likely to go to YCS Charlotte. It's not 100% confirmed yet, but I'm likely to go because I found a ride to go ahead and drive down with. So I will be posting that deck profile if I do end up going. But yeah, if you also want to see a deck profile for the current format, I know it's only going to be 2 more weeks until Duel Overload anyway, but if you want to see what I've been climbing on Dueling Book with, I actually did achieve 1,000 rating, by the way, spoiler alert. But if you want to see that, I'll leave a pinned comment with the timestamps as I did in the last combo video, but just like that comment, make sure it gets like, if it gets like 50 likes, I'll do a video on that. And if the video itself gets 200 likes, then I'll do like a bit of a preview for a Duel Overload deck profile in the upcoming week or so. So I know that was kind of a lot, but anyways, this is the final combo and it's going to be my personal favorite one. And that is going to be one that ends on an Artifact Scythe lock because of the new Artifact link, which I personally think is extremely broken. And just allowing you to end on other disruptions like the Infinity and a Tornado Dragon, as well as Appaloosa and a Divine Strike. So it's really, really good, and it allows you to, just like the last combo, be very flexible and have good follow-up for, the control decks, or good follow-up for just pushing for OTKs, and that's why I really like this sort of approach to the deck. So anyways, let's go ahead and dive into the last combo. So Chick will send Martin, Tiger will bring it back, no shocker here, we're going to fast forward. Forstrix will search Singing Lanius, we're going to summon Singing Lanius by its own effect, bring out Ystrix, bring out Zephyrus by Ystrix, and then Martin will bounce Tiger to bring it itself out, and then we're going to go ahead and bring out the second Forstrix and search a copy of Bora, which will trigger the Ystrix to set the Soul Shave Force. We're going to activate the Soul Shave Force to be able to, secure ourselves in this position with an Infinity. And then we're going to go ahead and link away these two into the new Artifact link. So this is going to be the last card that is new in this video, and it requires just 2 monsters with different names, which is really generic. And it says, when the effect of another card on the field is activated as a quick effect, you can set 1 artifact monster from your hand or deck to your spell and trap zone as a spell, but destroying it during your opponent's next end phase. If this link summon card is destroyed during your opponent's turn, you can special summon an artifact monster from your graveyard in defense position. And each effect is a hard one to return. So, when you do anything at all, you get to set Artifact Scythe. And that is unbelievably broken. I think it is actually more broken than Ystrix. If we got Ystrix without this card, obviously it would make Lunalight as a whole strategy a lot more cohesive, but this just makes the possibilities extremely absurd. So we're going to go ahead and scale Tiger, which actually prompts the Artifact Dog. It does directly chain to whatever effect or card that you're activating. And if you are wondering about the ruling on this card, it does actually also chain to if Tiger is already face up and is activating its effect to special summon, like Dada would also trigger there. So it works both on the scale activation and the effect while in scale activation, if that makes sense. So we're going to set our Scythe for free because why not? That's very, very fair. And then we're going to go ahead and use Tiger since we hadn't actually used its revival effect yet. We were just chaining the Dada to the scale activation. And we're going to use the Tiger to bring back Clutterchick. And we can send whatever again, as per usual. We can bounce our Tiger with the Zephyrus, summon itself, summon Bora because we control Zephyrus, and then make a copy of Gallant Granite, which will search us the Zephyrath again. So the Zephyr engine coming in here as just another option like before. And unlike the last combo, because Dada has very good arrows, we can just scale our scale 5 Tiger and our scale 7 Zephyrath and summon our level 6 Zephyr and search our copy of Zephyr Divine Strike. Then we can link away all of these floating monsters on board into an Appaloosa for 3 negations. And then we can use our Tiger, since we actually didn't use it again. We just scaled it so we can Pendulum Summon. Bring out our Emerald Bird, and then bring out the Tornado Dragon, which it has to again specifically be Tornado Dragon, so we can pop our Scythe during our opponent's turn. We'll set Divine Strike and pass. Now, some of you guys might be thinking, oh, well, the Zephyr engine seems kind of bricky, right? Because you have to run Divine Strike and Zephyrus, which don't do anything on their own. And that is true. And that is something I'm considering. I might actually end up cutting this. I'm tentatively playing around with it. But this does play around Dark Ruler no more. However, even if you do get Dark Ruler no more, you're always going to shotgun the Tornado Dragon in their draw or standby phase to get Scythe online. If they have something like Call by the Grave or like an Impermanence for the Tornado Dragon or something to that effect, you can always just chain Infinity and or Appaloosa, depending on what negations they have, and you are pretty well protected, similar to the reasoning behind shotgunning True King of All Calamities or shotgunning Dweller. With Infinity, it makes it pretty easy. You are able to bring your Scythe on the field. It activates, and your opponent is suddenly out of the extra deck. So even if your opponent has Dark Ruler no more, they're not killing you because of Dark Ruler no more itself. But even if they have something like Sphere Mode too, or say they have something like ridiculous like Sphere Mode Evenly or something, and you don't have the Divine Strike, still your opponent has to play without an extra deck. And if they're playing a type of deck that is going to side, those types of cards, with the exception of maybe Evenly, most like backward decks don't like side anything besides like Evenly in those cases for like those big board breaker cards, or maybe like Sphere Mode depending. But regardless, like most decks won't be able to kill you, and you're going to probably have a floating Tiger on board, and you started off with 3 other cards in your hand. Keep in mind, this is a 2-card combo, so you're in a very, very good spot. And this is my personal favorite combo of all of these, because unlike the Buster Dragon lock, you aren't susceptible to like a Kaiju just ruining your day or something like that. Like a lot of these boards would seemingly lose to Kaijus and ruining the extra deck lock. You don't lose to something like Mega Fleet because they can't Mega Fleet you because of Scythe. Again, Dark Ruler doesn't really matter because like they're gonna have such a hard time killing you. You have like really, really good reactive defensive cards on your board, and overall you have extremely good follow-up. It's just an insane board, and I think that this is like probably the best approach for the deck in my personal opinion. So yeah, that's actually going to do it for this combo. Alrighty guys, so that's actually it for the entire combo video. I want to thank you guys again for sitting through another what I assume to be a long video. I haven't actually started editing it, so no idea how long this is, but I can only assume that it's going to be another upwards of at least 30 minutes, if not towards an hour. And yeah, I want to thank you guys for being super supportive of these types of videos. It's really actually hard to put them together in terms of just getting everything the way that I want them to. I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to just setting everything up correctly. So I just have to make sure that I take enough takes to where I'm satisfied with everything. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever really top 25 combos in one video ever again, but I actually think that in some respects, I actually went more in depth in this video as far as, just the overall scope of the metagame and what the combos lose to and what they're good against and things of that nature. So I really think that this is a solid baseline. It's again more of a introduction to the format. I know it's like very in depth, but still it's very, very hard to tell where the format itself is going to be, as well as new things that might come up for this deck as well. So be sure to stick around, and I will keep you guys posted on things that I come up with or things that I hear from other people. And feel free to obviously just bounce ideas as always. But that's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like as well as any thoughts or feedback in the comment section down below. Feel free to subscribe for more informative and competitive Yu-Gi-Oh content. If you want to, you can follow me on Discord, Twitter, or Twitch. All the links in the description as always. And once again, thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, I will catch you in the next video. See you guys.